Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about all the movies I watched in November 2023. Now, it's going to be pretty much mostly just Harry Potter, and since I'm going through the entire series, I feel like there's going to be a lot of times where I just spoil things, so just be a bit wary of that. First movie, Philosopher's Stone. Now, being the first of the Harry Potter movies, I was expecting this to be the one to introduce me to the world and really get me invested. Now, sadly, I don't think this movie really quite did that for me. The whole time, I just didn't find a whole lot to care about. I'm not a huge fan of like the Chosen One type storyline that they did for Harry. I see that in a lot of other series, and I've never really liked it. It wasn't too extreme. It didn't feel like Harry was just overpowered for no reason, but I still wasn't a huge fan of it. And none of the characters really seemed that great. Being one of the earlier ones where they're all very young, the actors are, they're not great at acting, and that's not necessarily their fault. They're young. That's kind of what you expect. But I think it also made the characters a bit worse, especially Hermione. She was just pretty annoying throughout this, and she kind of is throughout the start of the series. But, it's not that bad of a movie. It was still a decently fun romp. I just wanted it to really sell the Harry Potter world to me, and it didn't do that. So Harry Potter 2 is the Chamber of Secrets. Now, this one is kind of similar to the first one. Still wasn't selling me on the world. Honestly, this one didn't feel completely necessary to me. It's a pretty forgettable. It might be my least favorite in the series. I'm not certain about that, but I just didn't really care. It felt like it didn't further anything too much. We got a bit more stuff with Voldemort, I guess, but it wasn't really enough for me to really care too much. It felt like more of the same, honestly. And, that goes to a lot of the problems in the first one. I wasn't being sold on the world. The acting still wasn't great at this point. And so, overall, I didn't care as much. I did like the mystery element of it all, and I do think that was well done. But at the end of the day, a lot of what happens in this movie really falls flat for me. Harry Potter 3, this was Prisoner of Azkaban. This was the first one that I really, really liked. It felt like it was taking a bit more of a darker tone. In this one, we see Harry, he's a bit older, and so you see him being a bit more independent, thinking for himself a bit more, stuff like that. And so I thought that was really cool. But this one also just had way more interesting topics with the Dementors and the whole situation with Harry's past and his parents and all of that sort of unraveling, and as you learn more about it, it's really interesting and all. And also this one, the acting was quite a bit better. I still felt like there were some small moments, but it was almost completely negligible. It felt like they really improved on this one. And also in this movie, it felt like there was much more of direction. I know that the director for this is an actual famous director. I don't mean that to offend any of the other directors of any of the other Harry Potter movies, but it felt like this one, he had a much more clear idea, and he had a lot more style than the other ones. And so this one really sticks out to me because it just exudes with sort of style, I guess. I don't know how else to put it, but I think it's really interesting, and it really, stands out compared to the other Harry Potter movies. Harry Potter 4, this is the Goblet of Fire. This is the one that really made me realize that this was going to be a good series. Because after watching the third one, I was like, okay, that was pretty good. But I was maybe thinking, okay, but what if it was just a fluke and the other ones are just going to go downhill from here? But this one, it kept it up. Still kept with a bit more of a darker tone. There's lots of tension in this one. And you were constantly worried with the whole competition that Harry was put through, that he didn't want to be in and that he was clearly outmatched in. There's a lot of tension there, and you were actually worried, and he was in actual danger throughout the whole thing. And also in this one, there's some really interesting mystery elements in it. I think all of them have some mystery elements, but just continuing on with this one also has it. This one has a lot of other ideas and things thrown into it that feel like were maybe fleshed out a bit more in the books, like the whole ball dance situation. That felt like a very weird thing. I enjoy just sort of silly romance shenanigans. I eat it up all the time. It still felt weird to me, but I still enjoyed it, so I'm not too mad about it. It just seems like it should have been fleshed out more. At this point, I don't know who's going to end up with who. Like, I feel like Hermione's going to end up with Ron or Harry, but I don't think there's great chemistry between any of them at this point, so I don't care too much. But I still enjoy the silly romance shenanigans nonetheless. But also in this one, we finally get a look at Voldemort. And I was very happy to see him actually show up because, in the other ones, Voldemort took different incarnations. And I was sort of thinking, maybe we don't see Voldemort until like the very end. And I was unsure about that, but I was happy to see that he does actually show up and he's actually doing stuff at this, halfway point in the series, of the movie series, I guess. I know there's only 7 books, but it's nice to see him show up this early, and he really brings a lot of threat and tension to the series. Since we're at the halfway point of the Harry Potter series, I'm going to take a break to talk about Jurassic Park, specifically the original Jurassic Park directed by Steven Spielberg. This was playing in the theater that's in my town that I live in, and so I was like, why not? I'll go and see it. I knew it would be a visual spectacle. I heard that, obviously music is iconic, so I just figured the theater's like the perfect place to watch this. And I was blown away. I should have expected it with the fact that this has such a high reputation, but I was still it exceeded my expectations by so much. It was such a genuinely exciting and thrilling movie, which I've seen the new Jurassic World movies, and those just aren't. This movie just does such a great job with actually making the dinosaurs feel threatening and scary, and the whole situation is genuinely tense that the new movies just don't seem to do. Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. This one is primarily centralized on the idea of the Ministry of Magic trying to convince everyone that Voldemort is not actually back, and I think that was a really cool idea because I don't think we really get much of sort of the wider world of magic, and especially of these higher-ups too much. So I thought that was cool, and it's a cool idea of them trying to use propaganda and sending this new teacher in to try to convince everyone that Voldemort's not back, and obviously all the students are kind of wanting to fight back against that. I enjoyed seeing Harry gather a group of other students and teaching them. I think that was really cool because I think throughout the other movies it felt kind of like it was inconsistent who respected Harry and who didn't, like who liked him and who didn't. Felt like some people really loved him, others really hated him, and it seemed kind of inconsistent, but now it feels like we have a core group where these are the people who respect him and support him, and they acknowledge everything he's done, and then obviously there's others who don't. Another thing that I thought was really cool about this movie was the whole thing with Voldemort trying to get inside Harry's mind. I think everything around that was really interesting, and the way they did it was really cool, and I just generally enjoyed having Voldemort in this movie just because, in the last one we saw him introduced and he's actually doing stuff. He's not directly in this movie too much until the end, but I'm okay with that, especially because at the end we get a really cool fight between him and Dumbledore, and that's the first time I feel like we really see Dumbledore use a crazy amount of power, and I think that's good because I think for a lot of these movies I haven't really cared for Dumbledore too much because we haven't really seen him do anything. He hasn't really felt necessarily super wise to me, but right here, I definitely had a lot of respect for him. I thought he did some really cool stuff. Also, at the end of the movie, Sirius Black died, and that's supposed to be a really big moment, but it didn't really have too much of an impact on me, and I think that's an overall problem with these Harry Potter movies is that the deaths don't seem to have a lot of impact, at least for me specifically. But overall, I really enjoyed this movie. I really liked all the ideas and concepts and themes, and it was just another great entry in the series. Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. I don't know what the general consensus is on this movie, but for me, I actually felt like this was a bit of a dip in quality compared to the last few Harry Potter movies. Because I feel like 3, 4, and 5 were consistently very good. But I don't know, this one felt a bit worse than those ones. And I think a big reason for that is it feels like there's not as much of a strong, like, central plot. Now, there's a few things going on in this movie. Like, there's everything with Snape. I mean, obviously, him being the Half-Blood Prince, you would think this would be focused around him. And he does get a good amount of focus, and it's all interesting. But there's just not enough for it to really completely bring you in for that to be the main interest of the movie. There was also a bunch of stuff with Voldemort and his backstory and just learning more about him and his past and everything like that. And I think that was some really cool stuff, especially as we're gearing up for the finale. I think it's good to, just get a bit more information about him. And we also set up the Horcruxes, which are like the main sort of end goal, I guess you could say, before defeating Voldemort. And so I do think this movie does do a good job at building up to that and building up to the finale. But there's just a lot of it I didn't really care too much about. At the end, we get some cool stuff with Harry and Dumbledore. They just go on a little trip. It's not a super long part of the movie, but I quite enjoyed that. I think in these last few movies, I have enjoyed Dumbledore more, which kind of makes me sad that he dies in this one, especially because, again, like I said with the last movie, the deaths don't seem to have a whole lot of impact for me. But I feel like if I knew Dumbledore for just a bit longer, I think this could have been really effective. This is also the movie where we see Harry and Ginny become a couple, and it is just terrible. They have no chemistry at all. Ginny was never really an established character before this. Her name was just sort of brought up every now and again. We would kind of see her in the background. And so it felt very weird to me that they're in a relationship now, and I don't know, it doesn't feel great. We also, I think at this point, like Ron and Hermione are pretty well established as well, at least by the end of this movie, and I'm totally fine with that. I don't have any strong feelings about it one way or another. Overall, though, this isn't a bad movie. It's just a small dip compared to the other ones, and it still does a good job leading up to the finale. So it's still a good movie. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 was a great sort of rebound compared to the last one, just sort of bringing the quality back up. Again, the last one wasn't crazy low, but this one was very, very good. I really enjoyed seeing the story focus a lot more on the three main leads. Obviously with them being the main characters, they are the focus, but we've had lots of other side characters and a bunch of other things going on. And so for this one, it's nice to just see them, Ron, Harry, and Hermione, just them on their own adventure. And I think that's really good, especially as we're entering the finale. It's good to get some good focus on them. There was like conflicts between them, which I thought was really good, even if it was maybe a bit contrived with the whole Horcrux. But I think it was still pretty well written. This is also it's good to isolate these characters because there's no Ginny here, and I'm sorry if I'm being too much of a hater on that, but I was just really happy to see less of her. There's also a point in this point in this movie, where Ron leaves because of, all the tension that's caused by the Horcrux and stuff like that. And it's just Harry and Hermione, and I was like, you know what, I wouldn't mind them being a couple, even though I knew it wasn't going to happen. I was just like, if it means that Harry's not with Ginny, then it's better. But also in general, I think Daniel Radcliffe and I don't remember the actor for Hermione. I think they have really good chemistry. Maybe I'm not specifically talking about romantic chemistry, but I just think in general I enjoy seeing them on screen just talking and doing whatever. So that's really good. Also, I don't know where else I'd put this in, but there's a short animated sequence for the flashback when they're explaining what the Deathly Hallows are. And I just think that's a cool touch that they went to the effort of creating this whole animation. And it looks cool, it looks unique and all that, so that's cool. There is also an action sequence in this one, which is it's like a chase sequence, I guess, where it's choppy, like there's lots of cuts and it's hard to like see because there's like fast camera movements, and that was just kind of annoying. But it was only this, I think it was only that one action sequence. I can't think of others, but there's been a few of those in these movies, and they're really just not good. I think that's just a general opinion that most people can agree on, that that sort of choppy type of action isn't very good. But this was a great movie, and it did a good job sort of getting me ready for the final movie where everything would conclude. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. This is the big finale of the whole series. And I think what's really great about it is that it really brings that sense of scale. It makes it feel like a big deal, where you see, big shots of Voldemort's army. You see the whole castle of Hogwarts. I think the scale in this is really good to make it feel like a big deal. I also feel like the story is really nice and concise. I think this is actually like one of the shortest of the Harry Potter, or even the shortest Harry Potter movie. And I think that works really well because it creates a really nice, concise story. This movie also does a good job at just wrapping up a bunch of loose ends and sort of making you piece together a bunch of things. Like, I really liked how it was revealed that Harry was one of the Horcruxes, because that actually makes a lot of sense when you think about it. Everything surrounding it, how he has, some of Voldemort's power. They mentioned that before, and so that made a lot of sense. And I also really liked what they did with that, where it's Harry having to come to the terms with the fact that he has to die. And, even though he gets brought back to life, and, I was that was in the back of my mind. I was like, he's probably going to use the stone that brings him back to life. But, obviously he does that. But it still felt really, really impactful, him having to actually die. Like, even if he gets brought back, he has to die. And I think they did that really, really well. I feel like I should also bring up the fact that, obviously, with this being the latest of the movies, it has the best CGI. We've seen the CGI get better over these movies. I haven't really brought it up just because I haven't had any strong feelings, but I just think it's cool to see how far they've come, and it makes some really spectacular action sequences that look really cool. But overall, yeah, this is a great movie, and I think just a great cap off to the series. It does everything that a finale should. There you have it, my thoughts on every single one of the Harry Potter movies. Overall, I felt like this series was very consistently good. So please tell me your thoughts on these movies in the comments. Which one's your favorite? Which one's your least favorite? Remember, save the blobfish, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.